Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk about Rogue One, which I think is the best of the modern Star Wars films for me. And I think a lot of what helps towards that is something that you don't find in a lot of other Star Wars properties, particularly the films, and that is shades of grey. The film is filled with cloudy morality. Uh, Characters placed in terrible positions where they must compromise their core beliefs. There are questions over does the ends justify the means? Now, that is not to say that I think every Star Wars film should have shades of grey. The building blocks of the franchise are myth and fairy tale. So clearly defined forces of good and evil suit that style of storytelling. But crucially, it is possible to explore different types of story within the franchise, particularly as it grows. And Rogue One is a great example of this. It can be reduced down to saying that the film simply applies a men on a mission, dirty dozen template to the world of Star Wars. But for me, I think it does much more than that. The characters in the film are probably some of the most complex ones ever featured in the franchise. And this is very much where those shades of grey come in. We don't really have any clear-cut heroes here in the style of Luke, who's very much a kind of warrior knight. And even our main villain in Rogue One has some relatable aspects in the way that he is portrayed. So let's have a look at some of the characters a bit closer. Jyn is super interesting as a lead, as whilst she ends up rallying the troops of the rebellion and making the ultimate sacrifice, it is actually arguable that she never truly cares about the rebellion itself. Her motivation is born out of the desire to at first rescue and reunite with her father, and then when that fails, she is driven by a desire for revenge as well as wanting to find redemption for her father's reputation. I don't think we ever really get the sense that she personally believes in the rebellion. She does have a speech to rally the forces before the battle at Scarif, but you can shake the feeling that for her, this was indeed a means to an end. She questions if the rebellion is much different to the Empire, inquiring of Cassian if he is any different from a stormtrooper if he just follows the orders he's given to kill. And once she delivers the message to Saw that the rebellion want to work with him, she is more than ready to walk away at this point, until the actions of Krennic and Tarkin escalate events drastically. Indeed, as she speaks with Saw, she outlines her pessimistic outlook. Compare Jyn to Leia and Padme. She is very different from those two, who are portrayed as having passionate belief in what they are doing. They fight for the freedom of all beings, a grand idealistic goal. Jyn does not. She fights for her needs first, and she is essentially press-ganged into joining the rebellion. But whilst Jyn is jaded and does not seem to believe that the Empire can be overthrown, she is actually the only character in the street battle in Jeddah that we see being aware of the innocent civilians around. She rushes to move a small child to safety. I think a lot can be understood about Jyn's motivation in the final moments of her life, as she goes to attack an already dying Krennic, with Cassian having to pull her away and telling her that it's over as he does so. Cassian himself is one of the most complex characters. He clearly believes in the rebellion, in its cause, but he is also more than prepared to kill for those ends, even innocents. This is shockingly seen in his first scenes. He kills an informant. After Cassian and the informant are discovered, the informant declares he will not be able to escape capture. And rather than risk the informant revealing any information, or indeed risk helping the informant escape, Cassian simply executes him and leaves. This is a face of the rebellion never before seen in the franchise. He rejects the idea that he's no better than an agent of the Empire or a stormtrooper when Jyn confronts him, but he does so seemingly uneasily. He doesn't seem to quite truly believe that is true. And of course we have seen him lie throughout events. From the start he knows he has been ordered to go out and assassinate Galen, but he maintains this pretense that a rescue is his plan. Then you have Saw Gerrera, a freedom fighter that saves Jyn at the start of the film, but then we learn has abandoned her without explanation years later. He is a figure that the rebellion has cut ties with after they decided that his methods are too extreme, and we do get a sense of that as we see that he is more than willing to submit Bodhi to torture. And Saw's paranoia drips off him. He fears the rebellion entrapping him as much as he is wary of capture by the Empire. And in the film we see him as a tired and almost beaten figure. He decides to accept death rather than keep running. He is certainly no Obi-Wan like mentor figure. He is portrayed perhaps as much as a terrorist as he is a rebel or a freedom fighter. We see his forces engage the Empire in city streets, taking absolutely no care for the civilians that surround them. All they are interested in is getting the resources that they need. They show no concern for anybody who may be caught in the crossfire. This shading of the characters continues through to the film's main antagonist, director Krennic. Krennic is a man driven by ambition, and yes, at points he has that sort of high fantasy level of evil, such as when he remarked that the destruction of Jedha is beautiful. Though actually the way that that line is read makes it sound almost mundane, chillingly mundane in fact. One of his main drives though is something quite relatable, a need to be acknowledged and recognised for his work. He is driven by his ambition. We see him get more angry when Tarkin effectively steals the credit he believes he deserves from him than we see him get with anyone else. The almost mundane nature of Krennic's evil is actually more unnerving this way. Galen is also interesting himself. He has run from the Empire when we first meet him, and when he is captured he begrudgingly helps work on the Death Star project in the hope that that will help protect his daughter. Whilst doing this he also plans the vulnerability. So he compromises his beliefs by helping the Empire, but does so trying to make the best of his situation. However, what is really intriguing is the flashback where we see Galen as part of the Empire. Here he appears to be happily chatting, even celebrating along with Krennic. He appears to be quite happy in his role and life as an Imperial scientist. What changes this, we never really find out, but it is an interesting progression for the character. It's a group of characters with a fascinating mix of motivations and drives. All of them have pasts that are complicated. No one here is a straightforward avatar of the mythical fairy tale type that so much of Star Wars relies on. And this feeling extends beyond our central characters. We have rebel generals and leaders ordering cold-blooded assassinations. They display doubt, they fear, and we can see them fighting amongst themselves. Indeed, the climactic battle is started by a group of rebels who refuse to follow their orders. And it's a battle indeed that feels much closer to World War films, things like Saving Private Ryan, than it does the typical high adventure feel of much of the franchise in its action scenes. And at the battle's conclusion, which is the film's conclusion, there has been a victory of sorts for the rebellion. The Death Star plans have been retrieved, but it has come at a terrible cost, and indeed none of the main cast survived the events. This kind of bitter-sweet ending is used to great acclaim, of course, in The Empire Strikes Back. Here it works well too, and the gritty nature of our now fallen heroes is contrasted by Leia appearing almost angelic in bright all white. Rogue One gives us a version of Star Wars where no one we spend time with is perfect, and where the villains display relatable emotions along with the evil required of them by the story. This is the mythic tale scuffed up a bit with dashes of more character-driven drama. These grounded the film and its impressive visuals in a way that it makes more than just a thrill ride. Anyway, there are some of my thoughts on Rogue One, and actually some of my first Star Wars content. I'm sure there'll be more along the line, as I won't deny it's a franchise that is somewhat imprinted on me. Let me know your thoughts on the film in the comments below, like and subscribe, and I'll be back soon.